Welcome to Guided Hearts, the podcast where we delve into the depth of faith, leadership, and purpose. I am your host, Nonofo Katlego Dibotelo, and I'm excited to have you with us today on this journey of discovery. I feel like every episode that we chose for the past 3 months has been leading to this moment, has been leading to us divinely discovering who we are in God, discovering who we are and our position and our place to play in this life, or our role rather to play in life. So welcome to this episode. This is episode number 9, season 1. This is our 3rd month. Every Monday we've been consistent. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're always here with us, it means so much. And in today's episode, we're talking about discovering your God-given purpose, a journey of obedience. It's one thing to have a purpose, but it's another thing entirely to walk in obedience to the calling that God has placed on our lives. Are you ready to find out how obedience opens the doors to your true purpose? Let's dive right in. We often hear people ask, "What is my purpose?" It's one of the biggest questions we wrestle with. But before we even begin to search for purpose, we need to understand that our purpose is not our own. That's number 1. Our purpose is not our own. So if you're having your own thing, your own thoughts, you know that it is not in alignment with what God has planned for us. Our purpose is God's plan for our lives. The Bible tells us in Jeremiah 29 verse 11, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope." Your purpose, my friend, is part of God's divine plan. He created you with a unique calling, something only you can fulfill. And your journey of obedience begins by accepting that His plan is greater than any plan so we could come up with ourselves. Listen, what we are trying to say or unpack in this episode is so important. Your plans, no matter how beautiful, no matter how amazing, no matter how many people applaud you, mean absolutely nothing if they are not aligned to God's plan for your life. Alignment to the will of God, alignment to the plan of God for your life, alignment to what God wants to do on earth through you is what matters most. You can do so much and find that when you get to heaven, you are not known. Apostle Michael Oropo likes to say this: you can be popular on earth, yet in the realm of the immortal, you are not known. So how do we begin discovering this purpose? It starts with the simple act of listening to God's voice. When we prioritize spending time with Him in prayer, in worship, and in His Word, we start to hear His calling more clearly. God's purpose for your life isn't a one-time event, but a journey. And like any journey, it's filled with steps of obedience. Now let's talk about obedience. Why is obedience so critical in discovering our purpose? Obedience is what opens the journey, or the doors rather, to the next step in your journey. When God speaks, it's up to us to listen and to take action. Because one thing about God is that He has given us free will. He does not force us. He can call you an apostle to nations, but He will not force you to become an apostle to nations. He can call you as an entrepreneur, the next billionaire, but understand that He will not force your hand to become that person. It is up to us to obey and take action towards what we've been called for. Every time we obey, we are aligning ourselves with His will and walking closer to the purpose He has set before us. Think about Abraham. God told him to leave everything behind and go to a place that He would show him. Abraham's obedience didn't make sense in the natural, but he followed God's call anyway. And through his obedience, a great nation was born. Your obedience may not always make sense, but is the key to unlocking the purpose that God has for you. Maybe you're in a season where you feel uncertain or afraid to take the step of obedience. Trust me, I've been there. But remember, obedience isn't about perfection. It's about taking that step with faith and trusting that God will lead you. Romans 8 verse 28 reminds us, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." When we obey, we are simply walking in His purpose for our lives. I'm going to read that again. Romans 8 verse 28. "And we know that in all things God works out for good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." According to His purpose, not according to our purpose, not according to our desires, but His purpose. And when we obey, we are simply walking in His purpose for our lives. Let's bring this closer to home. Maybe God has placed a dream or a vision in your heart, but fear and doubt are holding you back. I want to encourage you today to step out in faith. It could be starting that business, serving in ministry, or even speaking up for someone who needs encouragement. It may be in your relationship. Whatever it is, know that your obedience is not only about you, but about fulfilling God's bigger plan. As you take the first step, trust that God will meet you in your obedience. God will meet you in your obedience. He will equip you. He will guide you and open doors that no man can shut. I want to share a testimony with you. Recently, I stepped out in obedience, even though I didn't feel ready. I hosted a conference in January, and a lot of people don't know this, but I was scared, and I was asking myself, did I really hear God? Am I supposed to do this? Is this the right theme? Is this the right location? I knew God was calling me to create something bigger, to lead in a way that was out of my comfort zone. I had to trust His timing and not my own. And let me tell you, when I stepped out, God met me every single step of the way. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. He provided in ways I could not even fathom. He brought people to serve that I didn't even know. He did a mighty work that only He can do. And it showed me that stepping out in obedience means that you are with God and walking in His purpose and in alignment with Him. So I challenge you today. What is God calling you to do? What step of obedience is He asking you to take? I want you to pray about it and trust that He will lead you. Don't wait for the perfect moment, because there will never be a perfect moment. Just take the first step. The next one will follow. Remember, discovering your God-given purpose is a journey, and obedience is the road that leads you to it. If you've enjoyed today's episode, I'd love for you to share it with someone who needs encouragement on their journey. And don't forget to follow Guided Hearts for more episodes. Let's continue to walk together in purpose and obedience. Until next time, stay blessed and walk in His will. This is Guided Hearts signing out.